Hello, my name is Nabila Faiza from 4D English Education Department. So before I start this presentation, I want to ask you a simple question. Like, have you ever seen students who can read every single word but still not can get the meaning or get the meaning of the text? Maybe they can pronounce the words correctly, but when teacher asks questions about what's the meaning of the text, they become confused. Sometimes they even lose interest in reading very quickly. As a future teacher, situations like this are actually very common in the classroom. Many students struggle with reading, and often people immediately think that the students are lazy, not smart enough, or simply do not want to study. However, after reading this book, I realized that the problem is not always about intelligence or motivation. Sometimes students have a struggle about because their brains are still learning how to process the text. So that's why in this video I want to talk about an interesting book called Teach Your Brain to Read, written by Judy Lewis. Judy Lewis is not a teacher because it's not just a teacher, but she also a neurologist because of her background. She combines knowledge about education and brain science in a very interesting way. This book mainly talks about how the brain learns to read and how the teacher can help students become better readers. The target readers of this book are teachers, future English teachers, educators, parents, and people who are interested in learning and teaching. What makes this book special is the author does not explain theories. They also explain practical strategies and activities that teacher can really use in the classroom. The book discusses many important topics related to reading. For example, the author explains vocabulary development and how students remember new words more easily when they connect them with emotion, picture, movement, or real experience. This book also explains reading fluency and why repeated reading activities can help students read faster and more confidently. Another important topic in this book is comprehension. Judy Lewis explained that understanding a text is not about reading words, but also about connecting ideas and perceiving meaning and using prior knowledge. The author also discusses phonics and explains how the brain connects sounds with letters and words during the reading process. What I really like is that all of this topic are explained step by step in a simple way in this book, giving many example games, practice activity, storytelling, and techniques, strategies that teacher can directly apply. Because of this, I think this book is not only informative but also give how to learn our teaching reading. Now, I want to talk about the strengths of this book. In my opinion, this book has many strengths that make it very good, especially for future teacher English. The first is the connection between brain and science classroom teaching. Usually, books about neuroscience feel difficult and feel scientific explanation. However, Judy will explain complicated ideas in a way that is much easier to understand. For example, she explains how emotion affect your learning. When students feel stressed or anxious, the brain focuses more on fear and survival instead of learning. Because of that, students may find it difficult to remember information or understand the reading message. I think this explanation is very meaningful because many teachers only focus on academic results and forget that emotion also affect learning. This book reminds teachers that students need emotional support, encouragement, and confidence in order to learn effectively. So the second, maybe it is practical teaching strategies. This book does not only explain the theories but also give many classroom activities that teachers can directly use. For example, the author suggests using games, movement, color, starting like a music, creation activities. So one activity that I find interesting is like prediction reading. Before students read the text, teacher asks them like predict what the story of the page might be about. According to Judy Lewis, curiosity activates the brain and how students stay focused while reading. I think this strategy is useful because students often lose interest in reading if they feel boring in understanding the meaning of this book. Explain vocabulary learning. Instead of memorizing long vocabulary lists, the author suggests connecting vocabulary with picture, real life experience, movement, and emotion. For example, students For example, students can act out certain words, create theory, or connect words in a personal experience. This helps students remember vocabulary more naturally. So maybe next challenge is to will explain that repeated reading activity can help students become more confident and fluent readers. The book also encourages teachers to use repeated reading in enjoyable ways instead of forcing students to read mechanically. First step will be like the student can read dialogue practice for storytelling or read together with friends, so this make reading feel more enjoyable and less from stressful. So I think this book very interesting because the author often used the real classroom situation. So because of that, readers can imagine how the strategy work is actual person. The language this book also relatively compared to many academic books. So besides the strengths, this book also has several weaknesses. The first is that some parts are still quite scientific and difficult. Even though Judy will simplifies many concepts, readers who are not familiar with neuroscience may still confused by certain terms. For example, they are discussion about brain system, neural pathway, and cognitive processing. They may feel complicated. Sometimes I need to read a certain paragraph to understand the explanation clearly. So maybe the next is in several parts the author explain researches, finding and scientific studies for many pages. Otherwise, some research may lose focus or feel bored. I think the book could more effective is more explanation, were shorter and more direct. Another weakness that not all schools easily apply every studies in the book. Some classroom activities require enough time, technology, or learning materials. Now, I want to explain why I think people should read this book. Personally, I think this book very important for future English teachers like me, maybe. Sometimes teachers only focus on finishing the lesson or completing the curriculum. However, this book reminds us that teaching is not only about delivering materials. Teaching also about understanding the student. Every student learns differently. Some students understand information quickly through visual. Some students need repetition. So some students need emotional support before they can participate confidently. So this book helps teacher understanding those different. So thank you for listening. I hope this presentation of this video can inspire all of us to become better and more thoughtful for future educators.